Hello and welcome everybody. Welcome to the Bay Area Content Marketing Meetup. We should probably just take Bay Area out of our name because we're not meeting in person these days. We're just a global online meetup of marketers. Really happy today to have Kyle Akerman with us. Kyle is a Chicago-based Google Analytics consultant. Earlier this year, Kyle did an introductory talk on Google Analytics. So you can think of this as part 2 or the more intermediate. It's about how to use segments to find marketing insights in Google Analytics. So if you're here, you're probably a Google Analytics user who knows a little bit about segments or maybe doesn't and wants to learn more. So Kyle, I'll hand it over to you. Take it away and thanks for joining us.
All right, thank you, Dennis, and thanks everybody for joining. I know for a lot of you, this is your lunch hour, so I appreciate you giving me some of your time. So today I want to just give you kind of a high-level view of how to use segments to find those hidden insights in your data. And like Dennis said, it's a little bit more of an intermediate topic, but so it's not advancing. Hold on. There we go. So my goals for today are explain what segments are, why they're important. I'm going to show you the 3 main ways that you can dig down into your data to find more insights. I'm going to show you how to save segmented reports. Yeah. That's going to be very useful. And then I'm going to give you a few segments to get you started. So a couple things just to set the table. I want to do a quick review of 2 points for Google Analytics. I want everybody to just remember it's just a tool to answer questions. It's a lot of the, journalistic type questions that we want answered, but for our business. So in the context of your web presence, it can help you answer who's visiting my site, what are people doing on the site, where did they come from? So like what traffic sources, when did they visit your site, and how well are things working? So to keep in line with these questions, something I want everybody to do before you even open your analytics is to think about what you want to know, what do you want answered, and write down your top business questions that you want to get answered, because that's gonna help you focus. It's gonna help you focus. It's gonna reduce the complexity of Google Analytics, because you open it and there's hundreds of reports in there. So you need to have some focus, and it should help you get the answers you're looking for a little quicker. So just some very simple questions you can ask are, is my organic traffic increasing year over year? Or maybe, what are the most read blog pages on my site? How many people signed up for our newsletter? That kind of thing. The second point before we get into segments is, now that you've got these questions you want answered, you really need to know how the data is organized. And it's a pretty simple concept to remember once you've had it explained. So basically, Google uses the ABCs. And when you look at your reports, you'll see over on the left 3 ABC reports. So it's acquisition, behavior, and conversions. Those are the high-level categories where all the important reports are. This is just a zoomed-in view of that. Now, they're trying to help you understand a funnel, your marketing funnel. So say we're looking at like the ADA funnel, which is one of the more popular ones. You may not know this, but Google tries to map their reports to the sales funnel. So this is kind of how it looks. So the ABC reports map to those stages of the funnel. So the awareness, interest, desire, and then action. And then whenever you're in a report, you will see this A, B, and C pretty much everywhere. So see across the top there, we've got acquisition, behavior, and conversion. So you're getting information about all stages of the funnel. So just wanted to get things set up with that. So now, what are segments? They're basically just a subset of your data. Or another way to think about it is a specific audience of interest that you want to know more about. So if we're talking about people, you've got a big group of people on the left. you don't really necessarily want to know like the average of what they all do. You want to know what each of the different groups is doing, because then you can tailor your marketing towards those different groups. So that's part of why they're important. But we also have a problem with our data. That problem is all of our data, it's a jumbled mix of all these different things. You've got different sources of traffic, you've got people doing different things on your site, and you've got people that want different outcomes. This data, it's all just aggregated. And the problem with that is that all data in aggregate is crap. Now, that's not my quote, that's Avinash Kushik. He's a longtime data analytics evangelist. If you want to learn more about data, follow him. I think his blog's called Occam's Razor, and he's been doing this for like 20 years. So if all data in aggregate is crap, then what's the solution? Well, that's where we get into segments, because segments will allow us to separate our data into smaller pieces so we can find those hidden insights. What we're basically doing is we're digging deeper into our data. So I wanted to just show you this is a very simple example. These are just numbers I made up to just kind of give you an idea of things you might find. So say we have visits to our site of 1,000 people. And then those 1,000 people or visits, they generated $10,000 in revenue. Okay, that's great. Those are the aggregate numbers. Now, let's say I wanted to know how the mobile visitors did versus the desktop visitors. So if we look at just the visits part, maybe in this example, I find that 3 times as many of my visitors came on a mobile device. Okay, that's good to know. Then maybe I should focus on the mobile experience. If we look at the revenue part, I want to break that down by segment, by desktop or mobile. And in this case, I see that my desktop visitors, they actually were the ones spending money. They spent 4 times as much. So when I put this whole thing together in this made up case, here's what I discovered when I dug down into the data, that the desktop visits, they were only 25% of the traffic, but they generated 80% of the revenue. So if we hadn't asked the question and then dug down into the data, we would have never discovered this. And maybe we would have just seen the 750 visits and said, oh, everybody's visiting from mobile, let's focus all of our efforts on mobile. Well, in this case, that might not have been the right thing to do. I can just show you a real life example of digging down. So this was just a report I pulled. I think I got this from the Google demo account. So I'm going to look at the conversion rate and the revenue, which are over on the right. Again, I want to know if there's a difference between desktop and mobile. Just keep it simple. And when I broke out this data, what I saw was that desktop had 3 times the conversion rate over mobile, and it generated 96% of the revenue. So in this case, one thing this might tell us is that maybe there's a problem with our mobile site. Maybe that's why people aren't converting. There could be a tech issue. Maybe it's not a responsive design. Maybe the forms you got to fill out aren't rendering correctly, or the buttons are too small to click. Or it might just be an intent issue. People that are on mobile, they're just kind of browsing and they don't want to buy yet. So, but by digging deeper, we can see what the behavior is and try to figure out what is really happening. Okay, so let's talk about why you're really here, the 3 ways that we can go in and segment. So the 3 main ways to do this, first, there's a thing called a table filter. You might also see it called advanced filters. There's secondary dimensions. And then we get very meta. We segment by using something called an advanced segment. So let's start with the table filter. This is probably the easiest one to use, and you've probably already used this a bit. So in any report you're looking at in Google Analytics, at the top of the table in the upper right, there's a little, it's a search bar with a magnifying glass. That's your table filter. So that will allow you to sort basically the information on the page that you're on. So when we're looking at a page, thing to remember is the first column of data, that's called your primary dimension. And so for this report, this is the all pages report, page is just that primary dimension. So now, say I don't want to look at all pages. I want to look at a subset or a segment of those. This is from the Google demo account, which is an e-commerce store. So they have men's products. So say I only wanted to look at the men's products. Well, what I could do is in that filter box, I can type in men's, because I know that's what the text string is that appears in the URL of the page. So I can type that in. And then when you click on that, now it's only showing me the men's pages. So I can look at a new set of numbers. I can find out, I'm looking at a very specific subset of that entire page view data. Now, I said that sometimes this is called the advanced filter. So to get that feature, you would kind of click on this where it says advanced. And then what that allows you to do is you can drill down even further. So here in the first row, I still have my, I'm looking for page that matches men's, but then I added some additional conditions. So maybe I also only want to look at page views that are greater than 1,000, and then maybe entrances that are greater than 1,000. But you can get very crazy with all the different conditions you put in here, but that's the advanced feature. So now we'll move on to the second one. Secondary dimensions, another powerful way to segment your data. And when you're looking at, so just as a reminder, this first column, that's your primary dimension. So it's page. So it might seem obvious. A secondary dimension will just be adding a second column to help us drill down into that page data. So the way you add a secondary dimension is there's this little pull down called secondary dimension. It's not always easy to see, but you click on that guy, and then you'll get a menu of there's a whole list of dimensions. You can only see, a couple blocks here, but there's like 50 or so in here. I chose region, just for this example. Region is what Google basically calls, like if you wanted to search by state. So in this case, I'm going to add a second column to break it down by state. So now here's what the output is after I added that secondary dimension of region. So now it looks like it's all California because this is a Google site. So it's probably all of their employees. There is a New York at the bottom. So if you look at row 1 is the home page, and row 9 is the home page. Down here, this is New York, and row 1 is California. So you can see how it separated those. Now for an added trick, I'm going to add on to this. We've got the secondary dimension. Now I'm going to use that table filter again to sort by the state. So I'm in Chicago. So I only want to look at the visitors from Illinois. So I could come in here. I could type in Illinois for my region. And then now I've got the secondary dimension with region of just visitors from Illinois. Now you may wonder how do I get rid of this? You're like, Kyle, I don't want this secondary dimension. So the easy way, kind of zoomed in here so you can see it. There's a light gray X right here. So you just click that guy and then that column will go away and you're back to kind of your starting point. Now the third way to segment is using something called advanced segments. It's very creatively named. Couple things to know about this. These segments will remain active. So if you're moving from report to report, that segment will stay on until you remove it. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's great because you don't want to have to keep adding it each time, but you just have to remember, sometimes you forget that you have a segment on and you could accidentally report data as one thing, but it was something else. You can keep up to 4 segments active at one time. So if you want to compare data, and I'll show you how to do that. And if you run a lot of paid ads, especially Google ads, at any advanced segment that you create, it can be imported as an audience into your paid ads, and then you can run paid ads that target that audience segment. So that can be a powerful thing to keep in mind if you're running a lot of ads. So you have 2 options for creating these advanced segments. You can use what they call a system segment, which is basically the defaults. They're pre-made. Google gives you about 20 of these. Or you can create a custom segment, a new segment. So the way you do this is go into any report that you're looking at, and then it's kind of grayed out, but it's always in the same position, a little box that says add segment. So click on that guy. And then you get presented with all these choices. So these are the system segments here, and there's about 20 of them. So like here's mobile traffic, made a purchase means people that bought, multi-session users. So there's a bunch of them here. Or if you click the big red button, that's where you can create a new segment. So let me just show you one of the defaults and what the output looks like. So I'm going to choose mobile traffic. So all you do is just check that box, come down here, click the blue button, apply. And then when you look at your report, you will see that segment. So here's mobile. You'll see it along the top. So we have the all users, which is the default. And then this orange one is the mobile. And then you'll see the trend line here too. You see mobile versus all users. Then when you also go down like into a table, you'll see that segment here and all the numbers that apply to that. And then when you look at individual rows, you'll see the mobile traffic segment for that particular row. Now, one segment, it's not too bad. If you start adding 2, 3, 4 at a time, this report can get kind of convoluted. So what you might want to do is remove this all users segment. And the way to do that is you just click on this little arrow and then choose remove. And then what that does is it takes it away. So now I'm just seeing mobile traffic. You can see that here. Now, this is the part I was kind of warning you about. If this will stay active no matter what report that I'm looking at. So if you forget that you're looking at some segment, you could easily report numbers on a report as a different segment. So always be aware of what segments you might have applied. Let me show you how to create a new segment. So the first thing you would do is give it a meaningful name. Then you have to choose from all these different categories, and I'm not going to go into all of them, but you have different options of things you can choose from in here. So you'll choose the menu of the category you want to set up. And then within the thing, you'll have to make some choices. So this arrow goes to language. So maybe if you had a multi-language visitors or website, that gets translated, maybe you would say, I want to look at language that equals German. So then you would fill in that condition, and then you would click save on the big blue button, and now you have a segment. So let's just build a fairly simple one. Say I want to look at mobile visitors, and I'm really concerned about the Chrome browser. So I'm going to call it mobile Chrome. Pretty easy to remember. If you see that in a list, you'll know what that means. Those choices show up under the technology category here. And then I basically just have to set my browser and my device category, telling Google Analytics what I want to see. So I want to see browser that's only Chrome, and then I want to see the category that's only mobile. And then once you have that set up, this is kind of a cool thing. It'll show you, before you even go into your reports, it'll show you roughly how big that segment is. So in this example, it's about 16% of my users. So it just gives you a rough estimate as you're building the segment. So now when I go live with this, you'll see it here. So it'll always appear in this position. And then the data you see only applies to that specific audience. Also, if you're going to use this segment in the future, it's going to be stored in your list. So when you come back into this add a segment field, it'll show up here, and then you can just click it, hit apply, and away you go. You don't have to build it again. And again, if you want to remove this, just come up here, click remove, and it'll be gone. One last thing about creating a new segment. Sometimes you might want to see a sequential behavior. So they give you a way to set that up. So here's a very simple example where I want the first step to be people that they landed on my homepage. And then at some point in that visit, they made a purchase. So that's what I've set up in this condition. So I'm going to be looking at people that landed on the homepage and then at some point made a purchase. And as you might expect, that's a pretty low percentage, but it might be a very high value segment. So you can get very intricate with these sequences. I told you could see multiple segments at once. So here I've got 3. I'm looking at my different device category types. So here's desktop, I've got mobile, and I have tablet. And then you'll see the 3 different graph lines. Those are the 3 different segments. And then when you look at your reports, you'll see the breakdown here too of the 3. So you can compare the different rows, compare the metrics that are important to getting your business questions answered. You can combine all of these different methods. And I'll show you an example of doing that. So say I want to see all pages visited by people that are just in Illinois and that are on their mobile device. So the way I would build this is I go into my all pages report. I'm in pages here. And then I'm going to add a secondary dimension. So this will allow me to look for the Illinois part. So I add region, which is equivalent to state. And then to get the Illinois part, I'm going to use my table filter here to search for just Illinois. And then to get the mobile part, I have to add the advanced segment. And you'll see that right here. And so when this report is all ready to go, you can see I used all three of these segmentation methods to build this. So I've got, here's my advanced segment, mobile. I added a secondary dimension of region. And then I used my table filter to basically search this secondary dimension to only show me the Illinois part. So now here's I have to give you a big warning. If you make something intricate like that, you need to be careful because Google Analytics won't remember that awesome segmented report that you built. If you close out of the tool, come back later, you will have to do it all over again. And, we are all busy marketers, content marketers, so in the future, you're not going to have time to rebuild that, or, and you may forget how you built it. I see that a lot. And then that just increases your time. So luckily for you, you can save your segmented reports after you've built them. So, and it doesn't have to be a segmented report. You can save any report, but this is a very useful way to bookmark your reports in a sense. So basically there's a little, you'll see a little, it's kind of dated, but there's a little diskette, computer diskette icon, like a floppy disk on every report. So you click save, and then you'll be able to give it a name. So like I always give it kind of a meaningful name. So for that report I created, I'm going to call it Top Pages, Illinois Mobile. I should be able to understand what that means when I see it in a list. And then that report is going to be stored in in your left-hand menu of analytics, there's a customization section. In that menu, there's a thing called saved reports, and that's where those reports live. So you can see here's the one I created, Top Pages, Illinois Mobile. This will always be here until I go, maybe later I'm like, I don't want this anymore. You can delete it. But the beauty of this is I don't have to build that again. I don't have to get the segment, get the secondary dimension, add the table filter. I can just click on here. It takes me right to it. So I think it's pretty powerful. Once you start digging deeper into your data, the reports that you use most often, I would always save them because you don't want to have to try to rebuild these each time. So I just want to give you a couple easy segments to get you started if you're not using some of these features already and you're wondering maybe what you should look at. An easy one is compare user types. So you can look at the new user segment and the returning users. This can be important because the two usually, they have different behavior many times. First-time visitors might just be kind of kicking the tires of whatever it is you offer, or maybe they're just, reading content. And returning users, they might be in the mode to, see a demo of your product, maybe purchase if you're an e-commerce store, whatever the case may be. I'm a big fan of device category type. So especially comparing mobile and desktop. And why is that important? Because those experiences are very different. I mean, think about how you use these devices. First of all, the screen sizes are vastly different. The time when you're visiting. So, if you're on your mobile phone, you might be at home, but you also could be, on the bus, on the train, well, maybe not now during COVID, but normal times. And your intent, like you might just be scrolling, reading content when you're on your mobile phone. You may not be in the mindset to purchase. So we need to be able to separate these in our data. Traffic sources, looking at just your organic search is going to be huge, especially for content creators. And also if you're doing a lot of paid traffic, maybe you're trying to build your list or drive people to a webinar for information or some demo thing, you definitely want to split these two or look at them individually because, again, the mindset is different a lot of times. Organic search visitors might just be in research mode. And a lot of times paid ad visitors, they might be ready to buy whatever it is you're offering. So that's a good one. And then this is a little more specific one for content creators. You might be interested in looking at your top organic landing pages and specifically a blog. So the way I did this was I'm using the organic traffic segment, and then I'm filtering landing page by blog. And you can see, so here in this example, I see my top 3 posts from organic search. So this might tell you which of your content is evergreen, which topics are most popular, maybe which ones are ranking best in Google search. So those are some segments to think about using. And then I will give you a quick recap. Things I want you to remember that, remember the GA data, the ABCs, they map to the marketing funnel. Aggregate data is crap. So we use segments, which are just subsets of our data. Some of the options you have for that, we've got the table filter, secondary dimensions, and advanced segments. They all help you dig deeper to find those hidden insights. And then remember that you can save your segmented reports for easy access in the future. So yeah, this is kind of an intermediate topic, and we just barely kind of skimmed the surface. But as your analytics skills and needs increase, you're going to be using these things a lot. And I want you to adopt the mindset, always be segmenting. So thank you guys. That's the down and dirty 30-minute version of that. Whoever wants to stick around, I'll be here to answer questions as long as you want.
Hey, Kyle.
Thanks so much,
for
Kyle.
the presentation.
Yeah.
Quick question. Is for saving segments, is that for your account or is that for the whole account? And is there some nuance between sharing?
Yeah, that's a great point. There is a lot of nuance in that. Most of those will only appear, I think they only appear, they map to the login.
Right.
So if you're using, sometimes an organization will just have a generic shared login, like marketing@gmail.com. So if everyone has the same login, everyone will see them. But if you're using different logins to the same account, you won't see someone else's segments and they won't see yours. Now you can share them. I could create it and share you the link, and then you could add it to your account, but they don't make it easy for everyone to see it. So that's one drawback, but that's a great question.
Well, thank you.
Hey, Kyle, tell us a little bit about the services that your company provides and whether you work with any particular types of clients.
Yeah. So I am a solopreneur, and I provide mostly, I work with the Google suite primarily, but helping people with their measurement strategy, implementation of analytics on their website or app, if that's the case, reporting, and then analysis, and then optimization. So the full kind of all the buckets of measurement and optimization, wherever you are in that kind of measurement stage. And I typically work with small marketing teams. So, and when I say small, I mean 1 to 3 people on the marketing team. Because I can help them the best because they're trying to do everything. And usually I find one of the things that gets forgotten is the analytics. And I think by helping them bring some analytical insights to what they're doing, I can help them focus their their lack of or their limited time and resources on exactly the places they should be. So small teams, I'm kind of industry agnostic, which is what I love about analytics, because it doesn't really, it doesn't matter. I can help B2B, B2C. As you might expect, lately I've been helping or doing a lot of e-commerce projects. So that's been kind of fun. But and sometimes I'll partner with agencies to help them beef up their analytics offerings a little bit. So that's primarily it, Dennis.
Excellent. Before we get into some more questions, is there anyone out there that wants to share that's using segments in Google Analytics that maybe has a success story they'd like to share with us? Anyone? Or maybe none of you are using segments yet.
This sounds like, an opportunity.
Okay, I'm taking the silence as in either not using segments or no success stories.
Well, and I think that
I'll make a comment.
Yeah.
So I mean, a success story usually I can relate back to like more revenue or something, and I can't really do that. But most of my clients are B2B, but I've got a winery client just over the hill. No, not over the hill from you, down in the Bay Area, over the hill from some of you in Livermore. He early on working with them, this is going back several years now to where mobile was still kind of taking off. About 10% of their website traffic was mobile, and it's like, okay, well, that's enough to worry about, right? And this, they had a responsive site at the website at the time, but wasn't really mobile optimized. But then I took a look and I created a segment for weekend traffic versus during the week traffic. And what I found out was 75% of the traffic during the week was desktop, but on weekends, 75% of the traffic was mobile. And being in a winery in the Livermore Valley where there's, I can't believe it, like 100 wineries or something.
Right.
People were getting on their phone, driving around the valley, trying to figure out what winery to go to next. So that mobile traffic was actually quite important. But if you looked at just the overall website traffic, it would kind of get lost in the noise.
Right. Well, and you brought up a great point too in your example. Time can be a segment. So, whether you're looking at specific days of the week, which, you were in your case, or maybe it's, an entire month if you've got like seasonal things. So yeah, time can be a segment too. So thank you for bringing that up. That was a good one.
Yeah, that's a great story, Todd. Did the winery do anything in response, knowing this new insight about weekends?
Did they? No, not really, but I did. I went through and I mobile optimized their site. They had a lot of images that were big and too image heavy, and so I did a lot of website work.
Okay.
With that being kind of the justification.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, was there? That was the answer I was looking for. That's excellent.
Yeah, it's good work for me. I did toy around with the idea and didn't implement it. Is let's put on weekends. And I could have broken it up on mobile traffic too do some customization of the website to put like a map, search location box or something front and center at the top of the mobile web page or the weekend web page, homepage. Didn't do that, but it was something I considered.
Great idea. When the vaccine, I was going to say, when the vaccine comes out, maybe we'll travel with the meetup group down to your client's winery. Oh,
I would love it. They have, yeah. One thing I learned about the wine industry is, they've got wine that they make, and there's only so much they can make every year. And if they have a good year, they can charge more and increase their margins. But what they have a lot of is inventory, is facility inventory. You think about that, it's a different way to think of inventory, but they've got their tasting room and their picnic grounds sitting empty almost 5 days a week throughout the year, and so holding events during the corporate events happen during the week. It was a really good growth path for them when they figure that out. So yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, it'd be great to meet there.
Excellent. I think someone else was going to speak.
Yes, I have a quick question. It's kind of basic. So we have Google G Suite, and I just kind of start a basic website using, I guess, the free tool that included in the G Suite. And so I guess the issue I have here is the link have Google attached to it. And so some of our clients, when they look up our company name, they wouldn't know that. So then how do you make it work? So then people, if let's say the company name is Cisco, if they type in Cisco, not knowing that the link actually have Google attached to it, does it still show up, or do you have to do something special? You understand what I'm asking?
Kind of. I mean, if there's data that you don't want showing up in your reports, you can create a segment to not show you that. I mean, is that kind of what you're asking?
No,
Like
no. I of course we couldn't even get that far. So let's say the name of the company is Cisco, right?
Okay.
And you can create a website and it will call like cisco.com, HTTP whatever Cisco.com. But when you create one to Google G Suite, instead of saying HTTP www, it would say Google, and then it would say Cisco.com. So people couldn't guess that link. They would type in maybe like, Cisco.com, and it wouldn't come up. So then if it wouldn't come up, there's no traffic. If there's no traffic, then you cannot do the analytics.
Right. That sounds like a bigger problem with setting up your,
but that's included in the Google G Suite. It's the website service included in there that you can actually launch a website using that tool.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with that, but maybe we can talk offline and try to figure out what's going on.
Caroline, is that Google Sites you're using?
Well, yeah, we have the Google G Suite service.
Okay.
And
yeah.
In that, they also included, beside the spreadsheets and whatever Word equivalent document, also a tool for you to build your own website. And you can build one rather quickly using that. And I did. I built one. The problem is when I got the link, it's not just like whatever, carolinewing.com. It will be more like Google something.carolinewing.com. And then people, when they heard about your company, and they would tell me, say like, I couldn't find your company. I put in the name and it wouldn't come up because they don't have the actual link. When they put in the company, it won't come up. So then therefore there's no traffic regardless of what I do. I cannot use Google Analytics because I don't have the actual link, which is what people are more familiar with.
Yeah, I would see if there's a setting you can turn that off, or you might have to just use a different service to build your website, because that does sound pretty bad.
I know what that's kind of defeat the purpose. That's part of.
Yeah, it does.
You go for the G Suite so you can have all kind of little bonus thing that you can use, and that was one of it.
Yeah. Darn Google. All right, Kyle, we have a question for you in the chat from Helena.
Okay.
Google Analytics 4 was recently released, and it's quite different than the old Google Analytics. Any tips or best practices for GA4?
Yeah, so kind of the best practice right now is to just get it set up and running in parallel. And there's a lot of resources online how to do that. And I can help you if you need help doing that. But I wouldn't start using it, you're not going to cut over to it. So universal, the existing analytics, which I guess we can call either universal analytics or GA3, I guess. You're still going to be using that into 2021 and maybe even after that. The GA4 is a whole new model, a new way of doing analytics. It's event-based versus like page view based. And there's also still a lot of things like they're rolling out new reports and new features almost every day. So I would recommend just getting it set up and collecting data, but I wouldn't use it to make any decisions, probably for at least 6 months. But you want to have that historical data. So I would basically just say, get it set up and then slowly over time, learn what metrics in it would be important for your business.
What about new development, Kyle? Is Google focusing on GA4, or are they still going to be making improvements to GA3? Like features?
No, they're all focused on GA4.
Okay.
But
sorry,
yeah,
are you
go
saying
ahead.
they're going to cut over to GA4?
Well, I mean, eventually, but that probably won't happen for 2, 3, 4 years.
Got it.
But you don't want to miss all of that data, right? Like if you haven't set up GA4 and then all of a sudden you turn it on, you only start getting data from that point. So, getting it set up and collecting basic data is kind of the way to go, but I would keep making decisions based off what you see in your universal analytics.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
I always think of 1 year as kind of the magical time frame, because then you can compare 1 year plus a month or whatever. You can start comparing week to week, month to month, 1 year to the next.
Yep,
So
exactly.
You get it set up today, you're going to start having that data available to you.
Yeah,
A
but
little over a
you
year
don't
from now.
imagine they're going to migrate data because it's a completely different way of tracking. Okay.
Yeah, you can't even merge them because they're completely different.
Yeah.
So you can shoot me a line offline and I'd be happy to kind of walk you through it whether it's for you or some clients or whatever the situation.
Yeah. I actually had a different question.
Mhm.
So we have a page on our site that gets driven from one. So how do you pull out a page that has different strings of UTM codes going to it, right? Like I'm having trouble sort of consolidating all of the traffic going to that one page, because if there are multiple strings of UTM codes, they all show up as separate URLs. The only way I can do it is to go by page title, right? If I go by page title, then that aggregates all of those pages together, but then I lose some of the other information. I don't know if there's a way to almost filter using advanced filtering or something like that.
Well, usually the UTM codes don't get passed into the page report. Usually it strips that out, but so there might be a setup issue with that. But yeah, I'd have to see what you're looking at, but yeah, there's definitely a way to kind of group that stuff together.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't you get in touch with me offline and we'll take a look at it.
Okay, thanks.
So I'm a total novice on Google Analytics, but the way I used to work with UTM codes is like at the page level, I think there's a dimension with like source medium where you can see the values of the UTM parameters.
Yeah, there's basically 3 tags you should use. You can use 5, but 3 is fine. It's source, medium, and then campaign name. And that's usually using those 3 is good enough to track the links that you're sharing, whether in email or social or paid ads or whatnot.
And I think that's all the time we have today, folks. So visit Kyle at the website here, kyleakerman.com. Thank you, Kyle, for joining us. And to everyone, happy holidays. We have 2 more meetups this month, so check out our meetup page for those. And stay healthy and safe.
Yeah.
Guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Thanks for
everyone.
joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks, Todd.
Everybody.